you look to Jesus for your view of God, and Mark sets it up that way because we see him come right out of the gate. Son of God, Christ, Son of Man, which is sort of like the human one. It's Old Testament reference to one like a human that functions as God here on earth, bringing in a new kingdom. So we're looking to Jesus for our view of God through the Gospel of Mark. And when we get to today, we're in Mark 4. We're going to see a new theme that's introduced through Jesus. So so far we've just had this like overwhelming accessibility of God. God is for people. God is forgiving. God overlooks the rules so that people are helped versus hurt by rules. He stomps on rituals when there's no real value in them. Just it's a very specific, morning Jackie, view of God as completely accessible and for people, and we're going to see a little bit of a catch today. Hey Mac, man, there is this bird, and it's right outside my window, and for the past week he will just perch there, morning Tim, and he'll stare in, and then he'll fly like he sees his own reflection, but he'll do this all day long. I don't know how he doesn't have a broken beak or a broken neck. And he's back. So anyway, just thought you needed to know that because it's clearly going to distract me. So there's this new theme, and it's the accessibility of God with a catch. Now, what we're going to end up talking about is mystery and how like it gets frustrating for us as people that God doesn't just show up. Like, why doesn't God, if there's a God, why doesn't he prove himself? If he has made us and wants anything from us, why doesn't he just prove himself? And this speaks into that. I think this gives as good of an answer as any what we're going to talk about today. But first, I need to talk to you about the greatest show on TV right now, The Curse of Oak Island. I think me and my boys might be the only 3 people on planet Earth that watch this show. But we watch it. It's the only show that I watch every Tuesday night. And it's these middle-aged white guys that dig. And they're trying to find, there's this island in Canada with all this underground, I forget what it, like mine shaft work for hundreds of years, where people, morning coach, where people are trying to find this treasure that's supposedly there. And there's work down there from like 300 years ago. So for some reason, 100 feet or so below the ground, there was something going on, and they speculate that it's treasure, and they're trying to find it. And these guys, these multimillionaires, are spending millions to try to solve this mystery. Why? Because modern Western people hate mystery. We gotta solve it. We need the closure. We are never content to just say it's a mystery. And even now, if there's I was watching the other day, D.B. Cooper, the dude that jumped out of the airplane with hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are people who still are like make it their life's work to solve that mystery. We hate mystery, but in the ancient world, they loved mystery. They were content to say it's just a mystery, and it was completely rational. You could just say, like, for me, if you ask me, prove God, and I say, well, it's a mystery, that sounds like a concession. That sounds like weakness. But way back when, it was like, yeah, it's just mystery. That's a part of the whole thing. What's up, Double D? Good to see you, man. So anyway, this is going to get into why mystery. Okay, so here we go. Mark chapter 4. Jesus is, let me find my, okay, I'm going to start in verse 9. So Jesus is going to start to talk in what's called parables. What are called parables? Parables are these like little riddles. They're spiritual riddles, okay? And he shares them, and sometimes he will talk exclusively in these little riddles. And as you follow Jesus through the Gospels, one of the things you'll see is that he's like slippery. Like he won't just give straight, hi Karen, he won't just give straight answers. It's always just a little bit like around the side, comes in from the side door kind of thing. And so he tells his first, in the Gospel of Mark, his first parable. And then we read this in verse 9. And he said, after he tells his parable, He who has ears, let him hear. And when he was alone, those around him with the 12 disciples, asked him about the parables, and he said to them, to you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God. Like, you're on the inside. But for those outside, everything is in parables. And then he quotes, so they may indeed see but not perceive, and may indeed hear but not understand. Now, here's what's going on here. And I'm going to take the rest of my time to kind of explain this and talk about mystery. When Jesus says, whoever has ears, let him hear, what he's kind of saying is, who can hear? And it's almost like with a wink. You have eyes to see, you have ears to hear. He's kind of telling them, you should be able to get something out of this. But it's just one step or two steps removed. He's kind of inviting them on a journey to figure out the meaning. It's like a hide and seek kind of thing with his wisdom. And that introduces this brand new idea through Jesus' ministry, where he has been completely available and accessible. Now he's starting to kind of hang on the outskirts, and he's still very available and accessible, but you have to go find him. Much like the parables themselves, they're packed with wisdom. When I read the parables, there are times where it's like, oh, that's that parable coming to life right here in the situation that I'm in. They're inexhaustible wisdom in these parables, but you have to do the work. And this becomes this great sort of metaphor or teaching for God himself. He's here. The realities of God are inexhaustible, yet this is a season where we need to do the work. Now let me suspend that for a minute. Jesus introduces this new idea. What's going on, Big Ed? I don't know why I just called you Big Ed. Hi, Ed Carter. Good to see you, man. Hope your Easter went really, really well Sunday. So, let me go back to Numbers. Now, this is one of the first books of the Bible and one of the least read books of the Bible. I'm going to go back Numbers 12. And this is when a guy named Moses, I'm sure you've heard of Moses. I just slipped my fingers. You're not supposed to do that these days. Although I haven't been anywhere in like a month to get anything. Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, introducing these new realities of God, and God would speak to Moses, and Moses and God were close. And here's what God says in many ways, to the Israelites. This is 12:6-8. And he said, hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly, and not in riddles. And he beholds the form of the Lord. So what God was saying here is there is one guy on earth right now who is unique. And, Karen, you mad? He's unique. And I speak to him clearly, and he sees me. For everybody else, there's riddles. So God kind of frames up the same way Jesus does here, is there's riddles, and God's preferred. He says if there's a prophet, that means if somebody hears me and speaks on my behalf, I come to him in dreams and visions. Now what we see in the Old Testament with dreams and visions, the same theme. You got to put the work in to figure it out. So there's just this element of this part of our reality where God's saying, you're going to have to put the work in. So he frames it up where you shouldn't be all that surprised that I'm one step removed, that you got to do some work to find me and work to see me, because that's the way this whole thing is set up. Aside from Moses, and then obviously in Jesus' ministry here, people got to see God in human form. And only a select few got to hear wisdom directly from him. A lot of times it came in parables where you still had to do the work to figure it out. So I'm going to move now to Acts 17. We go to Acts 17, and this is a great, when it comes to why does God seem distant? Why does God not just show up and boom, here I am, deal with it? This is a great passage to give some insight to that. Acts 17:24. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made known from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. Here we go. That they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us. So Paul is reasoning with some of the ancient Greek philosophers, saying, this is the, Mickey, good to see you, man. This is the way God has set it up, that he's here, we can't see him, and his desire is for us. He wants to look into our heart and see us feel our way toward him and find him, because he's not far. He's here the whole time. There's this incredible story in the Old Testament about a guy named Jacob, who would later become Israel, who wakes up from a dream and he sees this ladder. He sees ladder connecting heaven to earth. And he realizes that there's a connection between heaven and earth, and he wakes up and he says, surely God was in this place the whole time, and I never knew it. And I think what we're going to find one day is that that's what this whole thing is about. Realizing, we're waking up to God, realizing he was here the whole time. And we just have to wake up to that. He's completely accessible the whole time. He just wants to see a heart that longs for him. And so what I say is, this is the age of faith, and there'll never be another one like it. There will be a day when this is done and we see God face to face. Let me read that to you. Hi, April. I'm going to read to you from 1 Corinthians. Well, here we go. I have it written down. 1 Corinthians 13. I don't have it written down. Those are my notes about it. 1 Corinthians 13:11. Here we go. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So here's what he's saying. Just as God has fully known us now, there will be a day when we will know him fully, just like he's known us. Like, it's coming. Not yet. It's coming. We see in part now. So what he's saying is, this is the age of faith. And there will never be another one like it. Someday God will reveal all things, and we will see him face to face, and we'll know. And at that point, what kind of gives us some insight into why this is so important to God. Because won't it be obvious? Like, yes, the almighty, all-powerful, all-loving creator of the universe, there he is. Sure, we're going to follow him. Sure, we're going to trust him. Sure, we're going to want in. But this is the age where our heart gets to decide whether he's worth seeking or not. And so we see God kind of playing a little hard to get, because he wants to see a heart that wants him for who he could be, as opposed to just, here I am, and then we're going to respond, if nothing else, out of fear from the Almighty. Like, we have to. What other choice do we have? So this is the age of faith. It's the age of mystery. It's the age where God doesn't just show up and say, look, here I am. Because then, naturally, this is the age where he looks to see whether there are hearts that want to find him, or as Jesus says, ears that want to hear him. So yes, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when bad things happen and God doesn't show up. It's frustrating when there are all these questions about him and he's not defending himself. And it's frustrating that he doesn't make sure good people go through good things and bad people go through bad things, and bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. It's all really frustrating, but remember, it's right there. It's been in Scripture for thousands of years. This is the age of faith, where God is looking for hearts that will fully surrender, fully follow him, fully run after him. And what we find is that he's not far. He's there the whole time. So let me close out Rob Bell style. May you have ears to hear and eyes to see and a heart that runs after God in this age of faith, even though you can't see him, realizing that he is never far. And I believe that that's what you'll find, that he's closer than you could have ever imagined. So I will see you tomorrow when we walk through the parable of the sower and analyze our own sort of faith condition as we try to find God in this age of faith. So we'll talk that through tomorrow. That's more Mark chapter 4. Have a good rest of the day.